Once upon a time. The Enchanted Tailor. In the heart of Cairo, a market town vibrant with the buzz of trade and the colors of diverse cultures, stood Adi's tailor shop, a cornerstone of the community known as much for its dazzling array of fabrics as for the magic that seemed to weave itself into every garment produced there. Adi's, a middle-aged woman with an enigmatic charm, was the soul of this haven of textiles. Her skin bore the soft glow of refined bronze, and her eyes, framed by laugh lines, sparkled with the secrets of her trade. Her hands, always in motion, stitched not just fabric but tales of wonder into every piece she crafted. Adi's shop was a treasure trove of the finest fabric sourced from every corner of the continent. Shelves upon shelves overflowed with bolts of cloth that shimmered under the warm light of the shop. Silks from the East whispered secrets to rough-textured traditional Osoka fabrics, while intricate Adire designs from the local artisans added splashes of indigo and white across the spectrum. The air was always filled with the scent of fresh textiles and the subtle hum of a melody that seemed to accompany Adi's swift movements. Customers from across Cairo and beyond were drawn to the shop not just for the beautiful garments but for the experience of witnessing Adi's at her craft. She could take a simple piece of fabric and transform it into a masterpiece in what seemed like an instant. Tales of her abilities had spread far and wide: dresses made in under an hour, suits that fit like a second skin, and traditional robes that carried the essence of their ancestors. Yet, for all the allure her skills brought, Adi's guarded a mysterious secret that was the true source of her shop's success. This secret allowed her to sew garments in impossibly short times, a talent she had inherited under conditions bound by strict rules she never dared to break. The most important of these rules, which every patron was gently but firmly reminded of upon entering her domain, was that no garments were to be tried on within the walls of her shop. This peculiar rule had never been broken, partly out of respect for Adi's well-known temperament and partly because the results of her work required no adjustments. Once a garment left her shop, it was perfect. Adi's reputation as the Enchanted Tailor of Cairo was unblemished, with a blend of awe and mystery surrounding her work. Her life was interwoven with the threads of her creations, each stitch a testament to a legacy of enchantment and the silent vows she had made to maintain the balance of her gift. As another day neared its close, the bell above the shop door chimed, heralding the arrival of a new customer, one who would challenge the very fabric of Adi's world. This was AMAKA, whose vibrant spirit and inherent curiosity were set to unravel the tightly woven threads of mystery that enveloped the Enchanted Tailor's shop, the mysterious rule. In the bustling town of Cairo, where the market always hummed with life, Adi's tailor shop stood as a beacon of exceptional craftsmanship and mystical allure. Yet, amidst the vibrant rolls of fabric and the rhythmic dance of Adi's sewing machine, there lay an unspoken rule, as integral to the shop's fabric as the threads that bound the garments together: no customer was permitted to try on garments within the confines of the shop. This peculiar mandate, known to every resident of Cairo, was adhered to with a mix of reverence and curiosity. Adi's, with her warm smile and authoritative gaze, would gently remind each patron of this rule, her voice firm yet infused with an almost maternal warmth. "Please, enjoy your garment at home, where it will fit you perfectly," she would say, handing over exquisitely wrapped packages that seemed to promise more than just clothing. The townspeople, for their part, respected this edict without question. Adi's reputation for creating perfect fits on the first attempt was legendary. The garments she crafted were not mere clothing but masterpieces that seemed imbued with a touch of magic. They fit impeccably, as if each thread was woven with the wearer's measurements in mind. Such was the precision of Adi's work that the need for fittings seemed a quaint notion belonging to a lesser craft. Whispers about why the rule was in place abounded. Some said Adi's was trained by a mysterious figure from the East who taught her ancient tailoring secrets on the condition of absolute privacy. Others speculated that the garments were enchanted in the shop, and trying them on could break the spell or reveal the magic infused within them. The more practical among the townspeople guessed it was simply a quirk of the tailor, a personal superstition perhaps, or a clever marketing strategy that added to her allure and mystique. Regardless of the reason, the outcome was always the same: satisfaction and a sense of participating in a part of Cairo's magic. This blind trust was a testament to Adi's place within the community, a cornerstone of local tradition and modern marvel. Her shop was a place where beauty and mystery wove together seamlessly, a hidden thread in the vibrant tapestry of the market town. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, casting long shadows over the cobblestones of the market, a new figure approached Adi's shop. AMAKA, known for her vibrant personality and insatiable curiosity, had recently moved to Cairo. Word of Adi's talents had reached her, and with a major social event on the horizon, she was eager to experience the magic of the enchanted tailor for herself. With her arrival, the unspoken agreement between Adi's and the townspeople faced its first real test. AMAKA'S modern sensibilities and her less acquiescent approach to tradition were about to weave a new pattern in the fabric of Cairo's norms, challenging the mysterious rule that had never been broken. AMAKA'S arrival. AMAKA was a force of nature. New to Cairo, her arrival had stirred whispers among the townspeople long before she even entered Adi's shop. A young woman with bright eyes and a laugh that could light up the dullest room, AMAKA carried an air of confidence that made her both a welcome and slightly perplexing presence in a town where tradition was deeply cherished. Her reputation as a modern woman with an inquisitive mind and a penchant for asking questions had already preceded her. AMAKA was not one to settle for blind acceptance. She sought to understand the world around her, unraveling the mysteries it presented with a curiosity that bordered on relentless. When she heard of Adi's magical tailoring skills, her interest was immediately piqued. The tailor's fame spread across the market, with stories of garments that fit so perfectly they seemed crafted by the gods themselves. AMAKA, however, wasn't one to be swayed by such tales without seeing them firsthand. With a major social event approaching, AMAKA decided that this was the perfect opportunity to test Adi's craft for herself. She had heard that no one ever needed to try on the garments, but she couldn't quite reconcile how something so magical could truly work without being fitted. This rule, the one that banned trying on clothes in the shop, was a mystery she could not let go. It sparked her curiosity like nothing else. What was it about Adi's tailoring that made this rule so important? Was it superstition, or was there something deeper, something more magical at play? The sun hung low as AMAKA pushed open the door to Adi's shop, the familiar chime of the bell signaling her entrance. The soft glow of lanterns illuminated the rows of fabrics that seemed to shimmer with an almost otherworldly luster. At the back of the shop, Adi stood over a large work table, her hands deftly weaving intricate patterns into the cloth of a dress. She looked up, her eyes twinkling with recognition. "Oh, you must be AMAKA," Adi said with a smile, her voice warm and welcoming. "I've heard much about you." AMAKA's eyes widened in surprise. "You've heard about me?" "News travels quickly in Cairo," Adi replied with a knowing smile. "But I must admit, I'm eager to see what you have in mind. What brings you to my shop?" AMAKA hesitated for a moment before speaking. "I need a dress for the upcoming event. Something bold and unique." "I've heard you're the best at what you do," she said, her voice laced with both admiration and a hint of skepticism. "But I must admit, there's one thing that's been bothering me." Adi raised an eyebrow, her attention sharp. "And what's that?" AMAKA crossed her arms, her tone playful yet probing. "The rule. The one where no one tries on the garments here. It's intriguing, to say the least. I've never heard of such a thing. I'm curious, Adi. What's the real reason behind it?" The shop seemed to grow quieter, as if the fabric itself was listening. Adi's smile never faltered, but there was a glimmer of something unreadable in her eyes. She paused for a moment, her hands gently smoothing the fabric on her table before looking up at AMAKA. The rule exists to ensure that the garment is meant for the wearer, Addis said slowly, her voice soft yet firm. What you wear should fit your spirit as much as your body. If you're meant to wear something I create, it will feel like it was made just for you, even without trying it on. AMAKA'S brow furrowed as she processed the response. It was a tantalizing explanation, but it only served to deepen her curiosity. She had heard the townspeople's whispers, how Addis' garments fit perfectly every time, how they seemed to mold to the wearer's very essence. But could it really be that simple? I'm not sure I fully understand, AMAKA said, her tone more serious now. How can a garment fit without being tried on? It doesn't make sense. Addis chuckled softly, her eyes twinkling with an almost mischievous gleam. Some things are meant to be felt, not explained, she replied. But you see for yourself soon enough. Now, tell me what you're looking for in this dress. I have a feeling it will suit you perfectly. AMAKA's skepticism lingered, but her interest was piqued beyond measure. She could not shake the thought of the unbreakable rule, the mystery behind it, and with every word Addis spoke, the questions in her mind only grew. Could the magic of the tailor's craft truly be so powerful? Or was there something more to the rule that was yet to be revealed? As the conversation shifted to the details of the dress, AMAKA's thoughts remained tangled in the question she could not escape: what exactly was Addis hiding behind her carefully crafted rule, the broken rule? AMAKA lay awake that night, the weight of her decision pressing heavily on her mind. The upcoming gala had her excited, but it was the mystery of Addis' rule that had truly captured her thoughts. She had respected it at first. She had admired Addis' skill and her mysterious aura, but the more she thought about it, the less she could dismiss the rule as nothing more than superstition. Deep down, AMAKA knew that she was a skeptic at heart, someone who needed to see to believe. Her nature was to understand, to break things down and make sense of them. The idea that a dress could fit perfectly without ever being tried on didn't sit well with her. There had to be more to it. And so, as the moon cast a silver glow over the town, AMAKA made her decision. She had to know. She had to see for herself. The next morning, she walked into Addis' shop, her steps quick and purposeful. The fabric of the dress she had ordered was draped over her arm, soft and inviting. Addis was behind her counter, stitching with the same calm precision that AMAKA had come to expect. The shop, bathed in sunlight, seemed peaceful, as if it were waiting for the next step in the tale to unfold. Addis looked up from her work with a warm smile. "Oh, AMAKA. I finished the dress. I trust it will be to your liking." AMAKA smiled back, but her mind raced. "It's lovely, Addis," she said, though her voice was thick with a mixture of excitement and anxiety. "I'll just try it on, quickly." Addis' eyes narrowed slightly, the faintest trace of something unreadable passing over her face. "Remember, my rule." "I know," AMAKA cut in quickly, her tone light, almost dismissive. "But I can't help it. I need to see how it fits before the event. Just for a moment, I promise." Addis didn't respond, but the weight of the unspoken rule hung heavily between them. AMAKA, determined, turned and walked into the back room of the shop. She could feel Addis' eyes following her, but she didn't look back. She wasn't sure if she was afraid or just excited, but her curiosity was stronger than her caution. The moment the door to the back room closed behind her, AMAKA held her breath. The dress was a masterpiece, just as she'd expected. The fabric shimmered as she slipped it over her head, the fit surprisingly perfect even without the fitting. But there was something more, an energy in the room, a pulse that she could almost feel beneath her feet. She had no idea what it was, but it made her skin prickle with both anticipation and unease. And then, just as she fastened the last button, the first sign of something strange occurred. The lights above her flickered violently, casting wild shadows across the room. The temperature dropped, sending a chill through AMAKA'S body, and she shivered despite the warmth of the dress. It was as though the room itself had become alive, reacting to her defiance. Her heart raced. Was it a coincidence? No, the air felt charged now, as if something had been set into motion. Before she could take another step, she heard the sound of footsteps approaching, quick and purposeful. She spun around, expecting to see AMAKA'S, but no one was there. The room was empty, except for the growing cold that seemed to seep into her very bones. AMAKA moved toward the door, her mind spinning with thoughts of what was happening. She needed to get out, to explain herself, but before she could reach the door, a voice stopped her. It was AMAKA'S, but it was different, sharp, edged with an authority that hadn't been there before. You shouldn't have done that, AMAKA'S voice rang through the room, cold and distant. AMAKA turned to face the tailor, her heart hammering. AMAKA'S stood just outside the door, her usual warmth replaced by a stern, almost fearful gaze. Her hands, normally so steady, were now clenched at her sides, the fabric of her dress fluttering as though it were alive. AMAKA opened her mouth to explain, but the words caught in her throat. The strange energy in the room seemed to have intensified, wrapping around her like a heavy fog. The lights flickered once more, now casting a dim, eerie glow that distorted the contours of the room. AMAKA'S stepped forward, her eyes not meeting AMAKA'S but instead focused on the dress, as if it were something to be feared. Her voice was low, filled with a quiet, dangerous reverence. "This is no ordinary dress, AMAKA," she said. "You have broken a sacred trust. This was never meant to be tried on in the shop." AMAKA'S pose quickened. "I didn't mean to, I needed to know. What's going on, AMAKA'S? Why all the secrecy?" AMAKA'S expression softened for just a moment, but there was no warmth in it, only sorrow. "The dresses I make are more than just clothing. They are woven with the threads of ancient magic, passed down through generations. The rule isn't superstition, it's protection. For both of us. And now the magic has been set in motion." The air in the room grew heavier, and AMAKA felt a knot form in her stomach. The chill that had spread through her body was now something she couldn't shake. It wasn't just cold, it was something deeper, something otherworldly. AMAKA stepped forward again, her tone shifting to one of regret. "You've broken the rule, AMAKA. And with it, you've invited something into this place, something we may not be able to undo." As AMAKA looked down at the dress, it seemed to shimmer ominously in the low light. She felt a deep, unsettling sense of foreboding flood her senses. The magic she had dismissed as superstition was real. And now, there was no turning back. The curse unleashed. The coldness that filled the room seemed to pulse with each passing second, pressing down on AMAKA'S chest until it felt like she could barely breathe. The dress she had worn, so beautiful and perfect just moments ago, now seemed to glow with a sinister light, the fabric riding beneath her fingers as though alive. She had known something was wrong the moment the lights flickered, but now, standing before AMAKA'S, the truth began to unfold in a way she had never imagined. AMAKA'S stood still, her face pale, her lips trembling. There was a sorrow in her eyes that AMAKA had never seen before, a deep, ancient sorrow. She took a slow step forward, and her voice was softer now, laden with a weight that made the air around them feel thicker still. "It's true, AMAKA," she said, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking too loudly might break the fragile thread of understanding between them. "The spirit, the magic that guides my hands, it is not of this world. My family has been bound to this power for generations. It helps me sew the garments in record time, weaving threads that are not just fabric, but memories, and hopes, and dreams. But it is not a gift without a price." AMAKA swallowed, struggling to process the words. The idea that a spirit, an otherworldly force, was tied to the very clothes she had admired so much, it was too much to grasp in one breath. A benevolent spirit, Addis continued, has watched over us, bound to the craft. My family's secret is not just about skill, it's about honoring that spirit, respecting the ancient pact we made with it. This rule, the one you broke, it's not superstition, Amaka. It is a safeguard. A promise that no one may disturb the spirit's work. Amaka's hands shook as she slowly removed the dress, her mind spinning with disbelief. She hadn't realized the weight of the rule until this moment, until she saw the fear in Addis' eyes. But, why? Why not tell people? Why keep it hidden? Addis closed her eyes for a moment, her gaze falling to the ground. Because if the spirit is disrespected, if the balance is disturbed, there are consequences. The magic, the connection to the spirit, it will turn. It will unravel everything. Amaka froze as the words hit her like a blow. Unravel. She glanced around the room, a creeping sense of dread making her skin prickle. And then, she heard it. The first rip. It was soft at first, a tiny sound, like the tear of paper, but then it grew louder. Amaka's eyes widened as she looked at the racks of dresses lining the walls. They were moving, twitching, as if the fabric had a mind of its own. Slowly, one by one, the seams of the dresses began to split open, unraveling as though something unseen was pulling at them. Amaka stepped back, her heart pounding in her chest. What's happening? She whispered. This is the consequence, Addis murmured, her voice breaking. The spirit has been betrayed. It has been dishonored by your actions. All the garments I've made, all the work I've put into them, they will unravel. It's the price for breaking the rule. For trying to take what is not meant to be. The dresses continued to tear, threads and fabric scattering to the floor, leaving behind only fragments of their former beauty. The shop, once filled with vibrant colors and delicate fabrics, now appeared bleak and barren. Addis' once pristine reputation, built over years of skill, trust, and magic, was crumbling before her eyes. Why didn't you warn me? Amaka asked, the words coming out in a rush of guilt and desperation. She didn't know what to feel anymore, regret, confusion, fear. The magic, the spirit, it was all real, and she had caused this destruction with her own curiosity. I tried to, Addis said quietly. But the magic is a secret we carry with us. It cannot be shared lightly. You've unknowingly triggered something far more dangerous than you understand. This curse will not stop here. Amaka looked around helplessly, the destruction of Addis' work all around her. The once beautiful shop, with its shelves and racks of masterpieces, now looked as though it had been hit by a storm. The fabrics lay in tatters, no longer the proud creations they once were. The spirit that had worked so diligently to keep them perfect had been angered, and now, everything was falling apart. Amaka felt a chill wash over her as the realization set in. What happens now? Can we fix it? Addis' face was lined with sorrow, but there was also a quiet resolve in her eyes. No. The spirit is angry. There is no way to reverse this without a great sacrifice. The magic cannot be restored without respect for the rules. And now, it will take something from both of us to appease it. Amaka's mind raced, her guilt intensifying. She had never intended for this to happen. She had only wanted to understand, to break the rule that seemed so ridiculous, so impossible. But now, the magic she had dismissed as superstition had revealed its true power, and its terrible cost. The shop was in ruins, and with it, the trust that had once bound Addis and her craft to the spirit. The curse had been unleashed, and now, the only question that remained was how they would survive the consequences. Amaka looked at Addis, who met her gaze with a quiet, resigned understanding. They were in this together now, bound by the same curse, with only one way forward, to make things right. But even Addis did not know if it was possible. The spirit had been unleashed, and now, it would take more than just magic to undo the damage done, redemption and resolution. AMAKA could hardly stand the weight of what she had done. The destruction, the unraveling of Adi's work, the curse, she had been too curious, too reckless. But now, standing in the ruined shop, she understood the depth of the mistake she had made. Her actions hadn't just affected a business. They had desecrated a sacred bond, one that tied Adi's family to a spirit that had been entrusted with a craft passed down for generations. AMAKA had disrupted that bond, and the consequences were far greater than she had imagined. I'm so sorry, Adi's, AMAKA whispered, her voice breaking with guilt. I didn't understand. I thought it was just an old superstition, something that didn't mean anything. But now I see. Adi's, whose face had been pale with sorrow, softened at the sincerity in AMAKA's words. For the first time, she took a step forward and gently placed a hand on AMAKA's shoulder. The warmth of her touch was a comfort, despite the pain that still lingered. I know you didn't mean to cause harm, Adi said quietly. But the spirit is not something that can be ignored, AMAKA. It's a force that binds this craft, and when you broke the rule, it caused the balance to shift. The curse was the result of that imbalance. But there is still a chance, if we act quickly. AMAKA lifted her head, her eyes meeting Adi's with a determined look. What do we have to do to fix it? I want to make things right. I won't just walk away from this. Adi studied her for a moment, her gaze assessing, then nodded slowly. The spirit will not be appeased easily. It demands respect, and it requires more than words or apologies. We must complete a series of tasks, ones that will test our courage and creativity. Only then will the spirit see our sincerity. If we fail, the curse will be permanent, and my work, my family's craft, will be lost forever. AMAKA swallowed hard, but she nodded. She had caused this, and it was her responsibility to help fix it. What do we need to do? Adi's eyes darkened slightly, but there was a flicker of hope in them. First, we must repair what has been destroyed. Every garment, every piece of fabric that was ruined must be mended. We must restore each item of clothing as though it were the first one we ever made, weaving new threads into the old, revitalizing the spirit of the craft. We will have to seek out rare materials, materials that can only be found in places where the magic is strong. The first task is to find those materials. AMAKA nodded, her mind already whirring with possibilities. Where do we start? Adi smiled faintly, her eyes sparkling with renewed energy. The first material we need is a rare type of silk, said to be found in the distant hills of Lufuna. There, the silkworms are said to weave their threads in the light of the moon. It is a dangerous journey, but it is the first step. And so, their journey began. The road to Lufuna was long and treacherous. They traversed rocky terrain, crossed rivers, and navigated dense forests. Along the way, they encountered various challenges that tested their courage and creativity. At one point, they had to outsmart a band of thieves who tried to steal their supplies, and at another, they had to solve a riddle from an old hermit who guarded the paths to the hills of Lufuna. Each challenge brought them closer to understanding the bond between craftsmanship and magic, and how every creation was tied to something greater than just the skill of the tailor. Finally, after many trials, they reached the hills of Lufuna under the glow of a full moon. There, amidst the serene landscape, the silkworms spun their threads, each delicate strand shimmering like liquid light. AMAKA and Adi's carefully harvested the silk, knowing that it was the key to the first part of their redemption. But the journey did not stop there. They had to find other rare materials, each more difficult to obtain than the last. They journeyed across deserts, into caves filled with gemstones, and even sought the blessing of a spirit who resided in the heart of the jungle. With every task, they grew stronger, more in tune with the spirit that had once been their enemy. As they neared the final task, they found themselves standing before a great tree, its roots deep in the earth and its branches reaching toward the heavens. Here, they were to offer the completed garments, each mended with the materials they had gathered, to the spirit. Addis spoke softly, her voice reverent, as she laid down the garments at the base of the tree. "We have done everything we can," she said. "Now, we must trust in the Spirit's mercy." For a long while, nothing happened. The air was still, and the silence hung heavy. But then, a soft breeze stirred, and the garments began to glow with a gentle light. The threads of silk, gemstone, and rare fabric shimmered as if infused with life itself. Slowly, the spirit of the craft manifested before them, not as a ghostly figure, but as a presence, an aura of warmth and light. The spirit spoke in a voice that echoed through their hearts. "You have shown courage and humility. You have understood the true cost of the gift I gave. Your actions have restored the balance." Amaka and Addis knelt before the spirit, their hearts filled with gratitude. The curse was lifted, and with it, Addis' skills were fully restored. The garments, now woven with the strength of their efforts and the Spirit's forgiveness, shimmered with a new brilliance. As they made their way back to Cairo, Amaka felt a sense of purpose she had never known before. The lessons of the journey had transformed her, and she was no longer the curious, reckless woman who had broken the rule. She was someone who understood the value of respect, of patience, and of honor in the craft. "I want to learn from you, Addis," Amaka said, her voice firm with resolve. "I want to learn the sacred art of tailoring. I want to carry the legacy forward." Addis smiled, her heart full of pride. "You are ready, Amaka. You will be my apprentice, and together, we will continue to honor the spirit, the craft, and the beauty of creation." And so, Amaka became Addis' apprentice, learning the sacred art of tailoring under her guidance. The shop flourished once again, and the town of Cairo came to recognize the magic and skill that had been restored. The bond between Addis, Amaka, and the spirit grew stronger with each passing day, and the town became a place where craftsmanship was respected not only as a skill but as a sacred tradition. The spirit had forgiven them, and in return, they had learned the greatest lesson of all, that true mastery comes not only from skill but from respect, humility, and the courage to make amends.